some of these critics, these pundits.
I absolutely adore them lads. I have unbelievable time for them, but they're a great bunch, but it's not acceptable.
They like to play the hard man when they're on it. It's not very pleasant when you're trying to manage a team. All you're looking for is a bit of civility and a bit of decency, but they just miss you like you know, you have nothing to do with the bloody occasion.
You're welcome back. This is the Quick Picks on OTB AM. Do we have a leaderboard? I sure as hell hope not. No, we don't, says Colin. He's shaking his head in the box. Thank God for that. I think this could be my last ever Quick Picks, because I'm going to be booted off ruthlessly after a truly appalling season, which I now believe. Did Adrian go for Meath last weekend, ladies? Do you remember?
Yes.
He did. So that means I'm officially bottom of the table.
Oh yes, you were the only
facing
one.
relegation. Yeah.
We need to see the top of the table.
Goodbye, Quick Picks.
Controversy around the top of the table.
There's been a controversial mathematical inaccuracy in the leaderboard, so we're not showing it. It says on my document.
Oh,
the less
okay.
said about
That's hope for me.
The better. Let's have a look at this weekend's predictions for the All Ireland. Oh wow, we've got a clean sweep for Kilkenny here. Everybody going against Cork. Colin in the box is shaking his head. Aisling, why Kilkenny?
Going off the semi-final, so both semi-finals, I was there in the day, and I felt there was almost maybe a little bit of a standard difference as well in the games. And Cork, I think they were just a bit all over the place. I was saying it there to Sarah. It took them a while to get going, to really find their form, and it was when Aisling Thompson really came on that she settled things down. She sort of sat deep and she sort of sprayed the balls in. They started to find a bit of form that way, and they started to get their scores. But overall, I was just so impressed with Kilkenny. I think Grace Walsh, I mentioned her already, in full back. She's such an experienced player at this stage, and she's still so young, but so experienced, and you can really see it. Like, she dictates what goes on in that back line. And yeah, she was just brilliant. Even speaking to Brian Dalen after the game, you know, he spoke about how Grace spoke in the dressing room before they went out, and it was hairs on the back of your neck stuff.
Right.
The way she spoke, and yeah, you can really see it in her game. You know, she's
their leader.
She looks like their leader. She really does. So if she has the game that she had in the semi-final again, a lot of the girls, Miriam Walsh, I don't think she showed up really at all in the semi-final, if I'm being honest. So she's due probably a big performance. She's been playing brilliant stuff all year. So maybe the All-Ireland final will be where we really see her come alive again. Yeah, and I just think all around the field, we mentioned the midfield area. That's probably an area, Sarah's dead right, that it could come down to. But yeah, just all around the field, who's more organised, I would go with Kilkenny at the moment.
The standard of semi-final is, I think, a very valid argument when it comes to previewing an All-Ireland final, especially if we look at this year and the 3 All-Irelands that we've seen so far. If you go back to last weekend, Meath really had to battle through their semi-final compared to Kerry. The previous week, you could say Kerry Dublin was much more of a war all the way down the home stretch in the men's football semi-finals, then Galway against Derry, and then Limerick Galway was an absolute war as well all the way home in the hurling. So maybe this is something we can really read into, Will. The flip side of all of that is that Cork had to dig very deep in their semi-final against Waterford. So why have you leaned towards Kilkenny?
I think based on the fact that Kilkenny have been very impressive in their last 2 fixtures, they absolutely blew Dublin away in the quarter-final at Semple Stadium, won that game by double digits, and then went on to beat the reigning All-Ireland champions very impressively in the second of the semi-finals in Croke Park a couple of weeks ago. While it's hard to track Cork's form, to be honest. I mean, in that Waterford game, they played very poorly before Aisling Thompson came in about a quarter into the game. And then, particularly in the second half, they absolutely dominated. They outscored them, I think, by 12 points to 3 after Waterford had a good run within the game. So Cork won quite comfortably. But their last game in the group stages, they changed the team around a little bit because they were already qualified for a semi-final, lost their last game in the group. That was the group that was absolutely wide open. So Cork played well, and their better form was probably seen a lot longer ago than Kilkenny. Then you look at the fact that Kilkenny have got, I think, the best forward unit in the country in Camogie right now. They've got 6 scoring forwards who are all available to them for this weekend at Croke Park. They've got definitely a physical edge to their game, which Sarah Donovan was talking about a little bit earlier. They will not mind being cynical if they have to be to try and stop Cork's running game coming through. And Cork will probably have to do something a little bit different if they're to beat Kilkenny, but they will lean back on the fact that they won when the teams met in the semi-finals of the Championship last year, while Kilkenny beat them en route to winning the All-Ireland back in 2020. So it's an intriguing battle, but I think based on what we've seen from the teams, you know, particularly in recent times over the last month or so, and I think recent form is quite important when it comes to preparations for a final. I think there's only one side you'd really pick based on the way they've played over the last couple of games, and that would be Kilkenny. Kilkenny have done nothing wrong in the knockout stage of the championship, and really I think they've probably timed their year quite well, even coming out of the league. They've played very impressively throughout the Leinster Championship. Then they went on to have a draw against Galway. I don't think they really minded having an extra game as it worked out in the quarterfinals of the championship, and then obviously won the last game in the semi-final there against the reigning champions. So there's a lot, I think, to like about what we've seen from Kilkenny this summer, so I have to tip them based on that.
Can you give us a margin of victory, Aisling?
I do think it'll be a close game. It depends what type of Cork team do show up. We were talking about the semi-finals there, and I suppose there's two arguments to that. Whether, they didn't peak at all, they didn't show up, that's almost fire in your belly to come out and go, right, we want to put up a performance here. And then Kilkenny had a great performance. So, there's that argument to both of those things. But I suppose it's going to be a close game. I think Kilkenny will edge it probably by 4 or 5.
4 or 5 in the end, so they might pull away at the end.
I think.
Okay, very good. Last week we mentioned it there at the top. I presume everybody went for Meath, and I was the only
yes, you
person
were
who went for. Okay, yeah. Not that you remember or anything like that. Not that you've filed that down under
stayed loyal.
New enemy. Were you worried at all after the first 5-6 minutes? How long was it that the 1-2 was scored in? Probably fewer minutes than that, was it?
Yeah, it was. Louise Nimmer-Hertig with that goal. Did you think it was a goal? Did you think she meant to do it?
Yeah.
Actually, you do?
Yeah.
What do you think, Will?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I give her the benefit the way she's been, basically shooting the lights out all year, and she's such a talented player. Yes, I will say that she meant to do it, and I had no dog in the fight last weekend, but I thought just from a neutral point of view, the fact that there were 7 minutes on the board and Kerry were leading by 1-2 to no score was perfectly set up, because you're like, is there going to be a response in Meath now? And that Meath defence, we're talking to Anthony Miles about it on Tuesday's show, is just so impressive. Like, after the 35th minute particularly, Kerry were snuffed out of the game by Meath, and then when Kerry tried to commit numbers towards the end, Meath had the counter-attacking ability, which we know that they have, but once the space is opened, they were clinical at the other end. And like, the running and movement within their forwards, quite aside from how good they are defensively, is just so impressive. And I kind of hope that this Meath team are able to keep their players around who are going to Australia. Like, the expanding AFLW season and the fact that the wages for AFLW are likely to expand over the next couple of years as well is probably going to make it very difficult for this Meath team to stay around. But it's exciting to see if we're going to have another dynasty. It's like when Dublin made the breakthrough a few years ago after all of their heartbreaking finals, and then they went on a run and became the best team in the country. There's a feeling that this Meath team could add plenty of Brendan Martins onto what they've already done.
That would be extraordinary, though. That would be in a level even greater than Dublin, even if they had won 1 or 2 All-Irelands fewer, you would have thought, because of the fact that you just said there, the AFLW aspect. It is going to disrupt them over the next few seasons, and if they manage to win more All-Irelands despite the disruption, I think that's one of the most impressive feats we've seen.
Impressive, yeah, it really would be. It feels a little bit different, even speaking to Eamon after the game, it feels like it's ending, and that was the sense I got from him when, there's so many girls there on the sideline, and that can come on and have an impact. But I think just for the management, there's some of them are stepping away as well, so it does feel like this road that they've been on since 2017, that they had 2 All-Ireland or 3 All-Irelands now, but they've been on the road since 2017 and trying to get things together. They had some really, hard times, and now they've had the highs, and it feels like some of them need a break or they're moving on to new things. And but it was brilliant to see them get the win. Like, just as Will said, even though the goal went in early from Louise Nimmer-Hertig, they never panic, and that's something I spoke to Moira O'Shaughnessy about afterwards, because they've been in this situation time and time again. And they've always came back from, being down at half time, and they still grind out that win. You can never write a Meath team off. And they were just so impressive. Like, their fitness levels must be through the roof. Like, I would love to see some of the stats. I've seen a few of them quoted in the paper after, but I'd love to be able to see what exactly they ran, what speeds they were at, because the likes of Aoibhinn Cleary was absolutely immense from halfback, and she's a name that supposedly is going travelling. Emma Troy's another name as well that's going. So it's such a weird one, because that they could go on and do a 3 in a row. They're so young, but obviously they want to take these opportunities when they come, and they want to do do these things in life where, when they get the chance. So you could never, discourage them from that either.
Like, it could be interesting next year, like as Sarah was just talking about with regards to the Cork Camogie team, that Davy was pretty ruthless. If you're the best hurler in a position, you're getting into the team. Like, could we be sitting here in March, April, being like, Vicky Wall's going to do 2 training sessions and just play for just the championship, even though everybody else has been training all year? Like, could we be sitting there saying that a few of those players could be doing that? Because like, you probably give a few of those players a free pass if that's what they want to do.
Yeah, and I think the way this Meath team are, they're so close-knit. Even all the subs, the panel, they're so close-knit.
It wouldn't break them.
It wouldn't break them. I think they will be delighted to see Vicky Wall coming back. That's the buzz, and I suppose anytime I spoke to them, that's what you get from them, that they're all such good friends off the pitch. Like Emma Duggan has spoke about, you have to be close off the pitch in order to be close on the pitch, and you can really feel that, like, they have such strong bonds. And even the panel girls that are there as well, like, they know what their job is, sort of thing. Yes, they're pushing for places, but they're okay with being the girls that are sort of pushing everything on. They're needed there. They're a major part of all of this. So I feel that they've got that right, which can be hard in a team to sort of strike the right balance between that, because sometimes you can have that feeding into a team, if there's negativity with girls not starting or whatever. But you just don't feel that really with this team. So I think, as you said, if Vicky comes back, if Orla Lally walks back in April, May, they'd be absolutely delighted.
Can they win in All-Ireland without them?
It'd be tough, because it's such a tough championship to win. It really would be very tough, because we're talking about girls that are superstar players. Like Vicky Wall is, she's really the name now of the LGFA. So we're talking about these type of players. She changes games, and they've been so close in games, especially against Galway. I thought that was a really a brilliant game to see. And Galway were thereabouts. They'll be disappointed with that, but it'll be very tough to do that, I think.
Was that possibly what you were suggesting earlier, Will? Was that they have every chance of being a strong contender without them, or what's your thought?
No, I think they particularly need Vicky Wall around. Like, she's the X factor in that team, because even when she was being occupied this year and perhaps marked a little bit more tightly even than last season, it created space for the players around her. She's just so important. And when you see her breaking tackles, and even you see like the booing that happened after she received a sin bin for what was deemed to be a frontal charge last weekend, I think people just enjoy watching her using her physicality. I think circumstance might help with Vicky Wall a little bit too, because unlike some of the players who've gone to the AFLW and stayed in Australia for an extended period of time, their clubs have sorted them out with work, which has kept them in Australia year round. In Vicky Wall's case, as I understand it, she's going to continue her studies in Australia from her course in DCU, where she's doing marketing right now. So she's going to be more tied down by the college term, as opposed to, say, potentially going into work with the club and staying there all year and not coming back to play for Meath. And she's got some existing sponsorships here in Ireland as well. So I think there's a very good chance that Vicky Wall will come back. The problem is that as the AFLW season expands, it's going to overlap more and more with the ladies' football season, should the ladies' football season stay exactly where it is now. Like, their season is going to come a lot closer to the men's AFLW, or AFL season, I should say, which will go right towards the end of the summer. There was almost a sweet spot before where players could come back to Ireland kind of late May, June, depending when they're knocked out. That's probably not going to be the case. And again, you wonder whether you'll probably do it for a star player like Vicky Wall, but maybe at some point there might be a Mayo-like decision where it goes, okay, you're either committed to playing ladies football for the full season, or you're going to play AFLW. And Mayo have lost half a dozen players as a result of that, but they felt that was the right decision at the time. Yeah, it hasn't exactly worked out in terms of results, but who knows, it may be a more sustainable approach as well. Will, Aisling, great stuff. That is this week's Quick Picks.
I have unbelievable time from, but they're a great bunch, but it's not acceptable.